All right, everybody, I am back. Good to be back, and I don't think a lot of people realize this. We are officially about 24 hours away from the 2021 NBA Draft. That's right. The NBA Draft is this coming Thursday, July 29th. I do think that it has kind of crept up on a lot of people for the simple fact that this is not normally when the draft is. The draft is traditionally the beginning, middle, end of June, but because the NBA season got pushed back, because last NBA season got pushed back, we do have the 2021 NBA Draft here on Thursday, and it's going to be really interesting. I think there's a lot of really talented players at the top. There is a lot of players that I believe even in the middle to the late first round that can be really successful. And so because of that, I think it's time to do an updated mock draft. I have not done a mock draft since the night of the NBA draft lottery, but a lot has changed. Most notably, in the top 10, the 10th pick in the draft, the New Orleans Pelicans traded back. The Grizzlies now have the 10th pick. So what I want to do is give you an updated 2021 NBA mock draft 24 hours away from the start of the NBA draft itself. I should mention I will only be doing the lottery, the first 14 picks, so no worries. I'm not going for a half an hour talking about 30 picks or 60 picks, but let's get to my 2021 NBA mock draft. With the number one overall pick, drum roll please, bad drum roll. It's going to be Cade Cunningham for the Detroit Pistons with the number one overall pick. I understand that Detroit is doing the song and dance of, we haven't made any final decisions, and we want to bring in this guy, and we want to bring in that guy. At the end of the day, it is going to be Cade Cunningham. Obviously, Detroit is trying to create interest in the draft pick, but they're going to keep the pick, and they're going to get Cade Cunningham, not only because he's a great player, but because he is a great culture setter as well. In terms of the player, 20 points, 6 rebounds, 3.5 assists. I think we all watched Oklahoma State. We all know how special he is. But what stands out to me about Cade, and I did have him on my Aaron Torres podcast, so I don't claim to know him, but I've interviewed him a few times over the course of his young career. He's just really mature, really well put together, and as I said, a culture changer in terms of basketball. He was a guy that went to a good Oklahoma State program, basically made them great, basically put them on his shoulders and led them to heights that they haven't been to in a long time. As by the end of the year this year, I think you could argue they were one of the 10 best teams in college basketball, beat Baylor in the Big 12 tournament, had a ton of success late. Now, I know ultimately they lost early in the NCAA tournament to Oregon State, but it doesn't change the fact that Cade Cunningham is a special prospect and will be the number one pick overall. This one is essentially a no-brainer. Cade Cunningham goes number one overall to the Detroit Pistons. Number two, I will spare you the drum roll, and this one has changed. In my first mock draft, I had Jalen Suggs from Gonzaga going here. I still think he would probably be my pick with the number two pick, but all intents and purposes, everything I'm hearing is that Jalen Green, the player who skipped college to play in the G League last year, will go number two overall. And I'll just say, I don't hate this pick. The Houston Rockets are in a complete rebuild from top to bottom. They trade James Harden. They trade Russell Westbrook a year before they trade Chris Paul. And when you're as bad as they are and rebuilding as aggressively and widespread as they are, you just need to go out and get the player that you think has the potential to be the best possible player. Don't draft on need. Don't draft on whatever. Draft on who can be the best player possible. And I do think Jalen Green could be that guy. He's 6'6". He is an elite scorer. He is an elite of the elite athlete. I mean, the kind of kid that's going to win an NBA dunk contest, should he, of course, choose to enter one at some point in his career. But an insane athlete. I thought he handled himself well in that G League bubble back in January, February, whenever it was. Listen, there are some maturity issues. I get that. I understand it. Another kid I've had the chance to interview a few times. I like him. And again, if you go Evan Mobley there, if you go Jalen Suggs there, I have no problem. I would probably personally go Jalen Suggs, but I get the decision for Jalen Green if that is in fact what they decide to do. He may have the most upside of anyone in this draft, and if you told me 20 years from now, 2021 NBA draft, who made the most all-star games, I could see it being Jalen Green. That is why the Rockets will take him at number 2, and I have no fundamental issue with that. Number 3, the Cleveland Cavaliers. They are going to select Evan Mobley from USC, as long as he is on the board. They have gone guard, wing in the last 3 drafts. Colin Sexton, Darius Garland, and, of course, Isaac Okoro last year. And it only makes sense that they go with the big guy down low. Evan Mobley has a chance to be he doesn't have a chance to be. He is a very unique prospect, very special prospect. And I think at the very least, he's going to step in day 1, hour 1, game 1, and be able to protect the rim, rebound, block shots, do the things that this team needs at this specific time. Now, the appeal of Evan Mobley is that there is so much more to what his game is and what it could be down the road. He's 7 feet. He can step out. He can hit threes if he absolutely needs to. He handles the ball well for a 7-footer. Not saying he's going to be Giannis or anything like that, but the skill set is there for him to do just about anything that he wants to do in this game. I would also mention, again, another kid, Southern California, spent a ton of time around him. Great kid, great locker room presence. The Cleveland Cavaliers need a culture overhaul as much as anything else. He will help lead that charge. I know I've heard great things about Isaac Okoro, who was last year's first-round pick, but Evan Mobley goes to the Cleveland Cavaliers, and I think not only from a basketball perspective, but a leadership perspective, a maturity perspective, it's a natural fit. Number 4, I think if the draft breaks the way that I expect it to, there will be no bigger winner than the Toronto Raptors with the 4th overall pick. They are going to take Jalen Suggs from Gonzaga. And it's just a perfect scenario, right? Remember, the Toronto Raptors, it was just 2 years ago, the Toronto Raptors were NBA champions. 2020 happens. 2021, they're not even allowed to play in Canada. They basically play in their own bubble in Tampa. They completely bottom out, and now they're in kind of this pseudo-rebuild as Kyle Lowry will probably move on, but at the same time, they still have 2 really young, talented potential stars in Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam, who are both 27 years old and just now hitting their prime. Now, there's rumors that Pascal Siakam could be on the trade block, but assuming both those guys come back, that's already a nice core. Now you add Jalen Suggs, who is a guy that physically and athletically should be able to step in right away and be a lead guard. Now, is he going to be Kyle Lowry next year? Of course not, but he has the skill, he has the athleticism, a developing three-point shot, and I think he is just instantaneously one of the most exciting players to enter the NBA and a player who fits exactly what the Toronto Raptors need. Now, the great thing about the Raptors is, they could take the developmental guy long-term if they wanted to, but I think it's the exact opposite. I think they see a fit, the kid fits, and he is a talented player. Jalen Suggs at number 4 to Toronto. Number 5, the Orlando Magic have a pick, and this is another new one since the last mock draft that I did. For all intents and purposes, it appears as though they're taking Scottie Barnes with Florida State. And the one thing you got to remember with all these teams, they're all in different positions with different needs and different wants. Orlando is at the beginning of a rebuild. They traded Aaron Gordon at the deadline last year. They traded Nikola Vucevic at the deadline last year. They're super young. I think they like Cole Anthony, but really outside of Cole Anthony, there is not a lot in this organization that you think will be there 3, 4, 5 years from now. So take the guys that you think can develop. You're not on the same time frame as every other team in this NBA lottery. You have time to develop your young guys, and Scottie Barnes has as much upside as anybody. Now, I think he's a little bit overhyped. At certain points, he's been a little bit overhyped, but the one thing you can't argue, he is a versatile prospect. 10 points, 4 rebounds, 4.5 assists per game at Florida State this year. And remember, Florida State plays a bunch of guys. He only averaged 23 minutes a game. So you extrapolate it out to about a 40-minute game in college basketball, you're talking about like a 19-point, 7.5 rebounds, 7.5 assists kind of guy, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my goodness, this kid is phenomenal. On top of that, the three-point shooting does need work, but he is a great leader. He is another one who I think from a culture perspective, from a maturity perspective, he walks into that building from day one and just gets to work. That's who he is. That's what he's about. And I think his skill set fits what the Orlando Magic are trying to do. Scottie Barnes goes number 5 to the Orlando Magic. Number 6, again, fit, need, time frame. Oklahoma City has the pick. James Bouknight from my alma mater, UConn, goes to the Oklahoma City Thunder because, again, it's what I'm saying. Oklahoma City now is in about 2 full years into their rebuild post-trading Russell Westbrook. Originally Houston, he's now with the Washington Wizards, and trading Paul George. And so they have had 2 years. The first year, Chris Paul ruined the rebuild because he was so awesome and the team was so good. But this past year, they were really bad. And you're now 2 years into kind of this new era. You need to go get players that have both star potential, but that can probably help you right away. And James Bouknight is a combination of both. He just finished his sophomore year at UConn, and I know for people that are looking at the raw stats, it's not to say that you wouldn't be impressed by a guy that averaged 18.5 points per game, but you look at the stats, you see 1.8 assists per game. His three-point shooting percentage went down, and everybody freaks out. What I can tell you, I'm a UConn alum. I watch all the games. This kid is special, and he had a really tough year. Went down with an elbow injury, came back, was never really the same, and it was a fluke injury. It wasn't something that's going to stay with him. It wasn't something that is going to affect him for the rest of his career. I think his best basketball is ahead of him. I know that there's frustration at UConn and amongst the fan base at the very least that we did not see the best of James Bouknight during his time at UConn, but he is going to be a very good NBA player. Makes a ton of sense with Oklahoma City at number 6. Again, at number 7, fit, need, timeline. Davion Mitchell from Baylor is going to go number 7 to the Golden State Warriors. Now, I've seen a bunch of other mock drafts where he's falling down draft boards, but to me, I don't see it, and let me explain why. Golden State, they know their window is right now. We got to win right now. Steph Curry's 32, 33 years old. He is not going to have very many MVP caliber seasons. Klay Thompson coming off 2 major injuries. If he is going to be, an all-star caliber player, it's probably not going to be for very much longer. Same with Draymond Green. We got to win now. That's why they drafted James Wiseman last year as a plug-and-play center who really didn't live up to what they were hoping to. And now you go get Davion Mitchell, and I think he fits a lot of needs. One, he's 20. He'll be 23 years old later this year, so he is on the time frame of the Golden State Warriors. He's ready to play now. He's ready to contribute now. And what I would also say, and this is important, he is maybe the best perimeter defender in this NBA draft. Why is that so meaningful with this specific pick? Do you really want Steph Curry chasing guys around all over the court for 40 minutes? Do you really want Klay Thompson checking the other team's best perimeter defender? You bring in Davion Mitchell. I'm not saying he's going to be a 42-minute-a-game kind of guy, but he allows you to let Steph and Klay take a little bit of a break on defense. He goes and plays the other team's best player defensively, and then from there, you go out and you do what you need to do and let those guys loose offensively. It just makes too much sense. The time frame, the window fits. Davion Mitchell at number 7 to the Golden State Warriors. Number 8, Orlando Magic back on the clock. And again, their window to rebuild started about 6 months ago. Go get the best high upside prospects, and they're going to go get Jonathan Kuminga, who was also a member of that G League program. And Jonathan Kuminga is interesting because he's really a guy that has fallen a little bit in this draft process. Early on, he was believed to be in that top tier with Jalen Green and Jalen Suggs and Evan Mobley and Cade Cunningham. He's really fallen quite a bit, and in some ways I see why, in some ways I don't. I think in terms of an ability to contribute right away, I think it's going to take a little while longer. But what I would also say is throughout his prep career, he had a reputation as a hard worker, as a guy that wasn't afraid to push himself, wasn't afraid to challenge himself. He competes on the defensive end. And athletically, I mean, he is as good as anybody on that wing. And so you draft him, 6'8", 6'9", can defend multiple positions. The offense you hope comes along. But again, if you're the Orlando Magic, you have time to figure that out. So Jonathan Kuminga, number 8 to the Orlando Magic. Number 9, Sacramento Kings. This one's easy. It'll be quick. It is going to be Franz Wagner from the Michigan Wolverines. Big slip up there. The Michigan Wolverines. Listen, Sacramento, it is no secret that this is the guy that they want. Sacramento, while they're skilled offensively with De'Aaron Fox, Buddy Hield, all those guys, they were one of the worst defensive teams in the history of the NBA last year. Franz Wagner can not only score, but more importantly, he is a guy that will defend on the other end of the floor. Good wing defender, good team defender. He will play on both ends of the floor. That is very important for the Sacramento Kings. He goes number 9, Franz Wagner to Sacramento. Number 10, Memphis Grizzlies. And it's interesting. Memphis Grizzlies, as I said to lead this segment, they traded up from the late teens to the number 10 slot with the New Orleans Pelicans. And a lot of buzz has been on Josh Giddey, the Australian kind of combo forward. I don't buy it, and let me explain why. I think they go Moses Moody, guard, University of Arkansas, and here is why. Again, it's about need, and it's about fit, and it's about time frame. The Grizzlies are a playoff team. The Grizzlies have Ja Morant, one of the rising young stars in the NBA. He is insanely talented, and they have done a good job putting in pieces around him. Jaren Jackson's kind of the stretch five, kind of piece. Xavier Tillman, I thought, played really well in stretches for them this year down low. Now you need guys on the wing. Giddey can be that guy, but Moses Moody's a guy that averaged 17 per game in the SEC as a freshman this past season. He was really, really, really good. Some believed he should have been SEC, potentially the SEC Player of the Year. That, of course, went to Herbert Jones. But when you average 17 a game in the SEC, 36% three-point shooting, I'm not claiming that there's no leap to the NBA, but it shows me that you can contribute right away at the NBA level. He adds scoring on the wing. He will be a good defender in time. He is a willing defender, and that is important. And he fits the time frame and the skill set of Ja Morant, a running mate, a scorer, a defender. It just makes too much sense. Moses Moody at number 10 to Memphis. Number 11 to the Charlotte Hornets. I've seen a lot of people say this, Corey Kispert, and it makes sense. Corey Kispert, of course, from Gonzaga. And the reason it makes sense is for a few reasons. One, historically, the Charlotte Hornets love taking older college players. Now, last year, LaMelo Ball fell into their lap at number 3, so of course they had to go with LaMelo Ball, who they believed could be that franchise-changing playmaker. But before that, P.J. Washington, 2 years in college. Miles Bridges, 2 years in college. Devontae Graham, 4 years in college. Dating back to a few years ago, Cody Zeller, Frank Kaminsky, on and on and on and on and on. They love older college players. Corey Kispert is not only a 4-year college player, but more importantly, a guy that fits kind of what they want and what they need right now. They have the athletes on the wing. Corey Kispert's a great athlete, by the way, but they have the athletes on the wing. They have LaMelo Ball. You need three-point shooting to space things out for everything down low. Corey Kispert, number 11, to the Charlotte Hornets. Number 12, San Antonio Spurs. I'm going to go with a little bit of a curveball here and go with Kai Jones, the big center from Texas. The one thing that we've seen from the San Antonio Spurs over the last few years, kind of in this post-Duncan era, they seem to really value high upside athletes and kind of believe that they can develop them internally. It's worked out really well in some cases with a guy like Keldon Johnson, who's playing in the Olympics right now, but other guys, DeJounte Murray, Lonnie Walker a few years ago. And so to me, Kai Jones, big guy who potentially 2-3 years down the road could be an elite NBA player. I mean, this kid is so gifted, so skilled. I mean, I watched so many Texas games where he would grab a rebound, rip, run, dribble the length of the floor, throw it down. Just an insane athlete, insane upside. I think San Antonio believes that they can develop this guy. They need help inside. He goes number 12. Number 13, the Indiana Pacers. Will start to wrap up here. Josh Giddey, the forward from Australia. I mentioned him, but Pacers really aren't that far away from being pretty darn good, and this is another versatile piece that they can add to the puzzle. Domantas Sabonis is an NBA All-Star. They got all sorts of young talent on that roster. This is just another young piece. They don't need anybody to contribute. They don't need anybody to come in and be a star. They need pieces that makes a ton of sense. And the final one, Chris Duarte, Golden State Warriors. So Golden State Warriors have the 14th pick. The 7th pick was not their own pick, but the 14th pick in the draft does belong to Golden State. Final pick of the lottery, and I think they're going to go with Chris Duarte, the guard from Oregon, a fast-rising prospect. Chris Duarte is just a stud. Now, he's a little bit older, too. And I think that's important here. Chris Duarte is 23 years old. And when you think about Chris Duarte, again, just who he is and what he's about. He's actually 24, He just turned 24, so I apologize. But, you think about who he is and what his time frame is. He's ready to play right now. This is not a 5-year, send him to the G League, stash him overseas kind of player. This is, can you help us win right now? The Golden State Warriors, of course, their window is right now. They have 2-3 years left. Chris Duarte is who they get at number 14. So a quick rundown of my mock draft here. Number 1 overall, Detroit Pistons, Cade Cunningham. Number 2, Jalen Green to the Houston Rockets. Number 3, Evan Mobley to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Number 4, Jalen Suggs to the Toronto Raptors. Number 5, we have the Orlando Magic taking Scottie Barnes. Number 6, the Oklahoma City Thunder taking James Bouknight from UConn. Number 7, Golden State Warriors taking Davion Mitchell. Number 8, Jonathan Kuminga from G League Ignite to the Orlando Magic. Number 9, Franz Wagner to the Sacramento Kings. Number 10, Moses Moody to the Memphis Grizzlies. Number 11, Corey Kispert to the Charlotte Hornets. Number 12, Kai Jones to San Antonio. Number 13, Josh Giddey to the Indiana Pacers. Number 14, Chris Duarte to the Golden State Warriors. Do me a favor, if you enjoyed this video, go ahead, make sure to subscribe to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube channel. Also, subscribe to the Aaron Torres Podcast. You can do that on iTunes, Podcast Addict app, wherever. Make sure to follow me on social media at Aaron_Torres. Follow me on Instagram at Aaron Torres Pod.